Well, welcome back to the full 80 minutes on Show Me the Money Rugby League TV. As you can see, it's been a bit of a heat wave the last couple of weeks. So we're here in warm, sunny, temperate North Yorkshire. And we've had a little bit of a spring clean in terms of the positioning. So the King has vacated the middle of the throne. So it is now young Joe Me the Money Harrison. I guess we're your prince and your pauper at the side of you, Joe. But yeah, I just want to say this for those that are watching this. The fiery show we kind of lasted. I did actually go through, there was about, in the end, I think there was about 111, 112 comments. So thank you for your engagement. We do read what you write and obviously express your opinions. And yeah, we're going to try and, be less antagonistic and at each other's throats. And I guess that only comes out when we are debating and we're very passionate in certain subjects, because 9 times out of 10 we're very laid back and I'm the most placid person you can ever meet. But there is certain issues that do get me going and get me worked up. But I just want to apologise if anybody watching this, and I'm sure we all offer the same apology if we ever do talk over each other. We don't mean to.
Well, that's a great start to the show, Michael. I read some of the comments, and I think most of them was towards you and Jimmy, if I'll be honest. And what happened after the show? Did you get into fisticuffs? Well, he didn't go that far. There were a bit of gripping. The money went down on you, Mick. We thought that you would take care of Jimmy in about 4 seconds. Jimmy's from the posh side of this world, tennis coach experience, not known for flicking the jab out. I think Gledl, ex-rugby player, ex-superstar of amateur rugby in Bradford, would have bulldozed Jimmy and it'd have been over in 2 seconds. But we are looking to get that as a charity fight. We've made the first chats. And if anybody's interested and we can get enough interest, I'm willing to put £1,000 down and let Jimmy and Mick get it on. There's a slight weight difference, but the height's the same. Age-wise, in fact, they're very similar characters, if I'm being honest. So that could be quite interesting, Michael. I think it's great for viewers to engage. Listen, there's no wrong with passion, is there? Let's be honest.
No, there certainly isn't. And before we get on to a brand new show and a lot of hearty and healthy and exciting rugby league topics, I still stand by the point I was trying to make, in that come July, when we hit this restructuring bubble that's about to drop, and the clubs at the July council meeting, end of July, I've been told the date, potentially get the vote. Does Super League contract to 10? Does it stay at 12? Does it go to 14? Does the Championship and League One merge? Because, just quickly, there was the meeting at Oldham last week, and these are all very important issues that are currently being discussed, and it was reiterated at that meeting again that we might not be next year, but for this year, promotion and relegation between the Championship and the Super League will be decided by the IMG table. So there's not going to be this golden hand or claw coming down and saying, we want London, we want Bradford, we want York, we want Toulouse, etc. It will be the teams in the IMG table. Goes without saying, London, another defeat at the weekend, albeit an improved performance for Mike Eccles and his side, a narrow home defeat to Sheffield Eagles. The feeling is London are dropping far too many IMG points to realistically, if that IMG table was going to be even at 14, for London to be anywhere near that challenging. So, I think if it does go to 14, I'll say this now: the 3 clubs in next year are Bradford, Toulouse, and York. We know Salford, sadly, are going to be coming out. There has to be, a penalty for what has gone on at that club. And I was out with some Salford players on Monday evening, and let me tell you, what they have gone through is harrowing. They are, as we are now doing this midweek, in the middle of the month. They do not genuinely know if they're getting paid at the end of the month. They're really worried about, their careers and potentially what's around the corner in terms of the future.
Mick, on that, sorry for butting in, and
no, it's all good.
Joe's got something here, but as player representation, if they are going to make them calls, what you're saying, the 14, they are going to make the calls on Salford not being part of that and have to start at the bottom or whatever they decide. And we all know that situation's horrific. At the moment, I think it's a bit like the QE2, the boat that sinks and they're all jumping on. Them will get on dinghy, all right. Them who are still hanging on, and singing the national anthem. They're sinking the Titanic. So them who've jumped off and got in the dinghy, they're waving and thinking, thank God I've got a contract. The ones who are staying, and it might be through loyalty, it might be through it's safer for a player to sit there because they're on certain money, and I've got to sit here till this one rides its thing, or these owners do come good and they come up with the brass. I think it's tough, because if it's true that the owners who are coming in are interested in the bigger picture, well, from what we've read so far, there's been nothing from Salford Council to say that they are going to sell them the ground or are going to sell them the development, which, I'll be honest with you, I'd be very, very surprised if that community stadium was ever given to private equity. I'd say it's impossible. If you look at Doncaster, if you look at not very often somebody buys the stadium off the council because it's been built by the taxpayers. Do you get me? To supply something for community in that area.
Correct.
If private equity buy it, they will choose who goes there. You'll never get schools playing there. It then becomes a private business, which, if you look at the ones that are owned by the councils in the UK, all stadiums, York, I don't know how many we've got here, your stadium's had more owners than I shan't go into that anyway, but there's been a lot of owners in it. Historically, it is kept within the council's boundaries, and rightly so, by the way. My problem is that call would have to be made now. That call would have to be made now, because let me tell you, if you're going to put 3 clubs into Super League, if this happens, Joe will reiterate as his own opinion on it. We're talking there 60, 70, 80 players to play Super League. Out of them 3 clubs who might have 5, 6 players who can play at that standard. To make it so the commercial watch is deanable. What we don't want is blowouts. So if you go up and hey, I'm going to keep the same side. It's not as easy as that. You've got a representation for Sky. You've got a representation. All the big clubs don't want to come up and beat somebody 70-0, 70-0, 70-0. So as a TV deal, everything, what they've got to do is do it quick, because you won't have the players to fill that. It'd be impossible. Even if you pick up Salford, and that's probably why I've heard in the last meeting of owners, somebody, not fair for us to say, there's only Mick Hughes that says that, and we don't have anything to do with Mick on that, in the meeting, somebody stood up and said, right, why don't we just get rid of the overseas quota and it's game on? So we can provide a product, because what they said was, the overseas players are now better discounted players, better money-wise than the English. That the English young player coming up wants big money now, or he's going to go to Australia. So they're saying they can bring in for the product. Now, me and Joe have talked about this a lot. So let's say, again, it has to be done quick too. They lift that, which should be against what we stand for as a company. We're all about youth development into that big time. That's how we base our business. But I do get this. This is one thing I do get. If you look at football, I said to Joe on Monday, do the fans genuinely want to watch youth people coming through, or do they want results? Joe said to me,
results.
Michael Glenville said to me before, results. As a fan, Mick said it. Mick went, looked at me and went, result.
I think, sadly, very few fans.
He's got to say that based on
very few. Very few fans see the bigger picture. They want that immediate success. They want that results. Look what Hulkinston Rovers went through all them years ago. They went down to Championship. They then come back. There was Neil Udgell investing in those young players, which some of them are still at the club now, coming through and thriving, and they've helped them win a semi-final, and they're off to Wembley again.
But now their product would be pretty...
That has changed, yeah.
I get it. So if you've got a fan turning up, but let me tell you, if they're going to do this quick, because that 70 odd players, it'd be carnage. They're putting Perth in Australia and they're giving them 12 months, 15 months to prepare a team. If you said to these lads in June, right lads, there's 3 teams coming up, you've got your coaches and your players who are all part-time, who have to then go to the bosses and say, do I want to play for 60 grand against earning 40 and 20? I'd say 90% of them players, if they're over 25, will say, I'm not going to do it. So where's the players coming from? We're not big on youth development in this country at playing youngsters. When I got certain clubs who will do it, them coaches are terrified of youngsters, they're terrified of them. They don't want to play them in case that doesn't get the result for the whatever. So if we said to somebody now, how many if the players had to come from the ones who can't play 18s, so let's say we've got 80 players countrywide, that's all we've got, or we're over 18, or we're not in the first team at Leeds, Wigan, Satan. I'm telling you now, there's not a coach in country, maybe one, who would play them players. They just wouldn't do it. But honestly, you look at, no offence to Paul, I love Paul Rowley, you know my feelings on Paul as a coach and what they've done to him, I think is horrendous. I can't even get into it. But if you offer Paul one now, even now, with how they are, he's very reluctant to, he'll only take it by default, like the young lad at ours at Leeds. It was a bit of a back deal, that's why he went. And if you'd have said to Paul, do you fancy having this kid? He'd have gone, I can't risk him, mate. No chance. Do you get me? So it's going to be the toughest decision I've ever seen, because I don't think you can do it now. And if they're going to go 14 teams now, I cannot see a million unless that one owner that one CEO gets his permission and they say, game on, and then you can flood it with overseas, then they can do it.
I just want to reiterate, I'm not saying here it is definitely going to 14. At the recent meeting, it was described, Super League will be, this is for next year, it'll be 10, 12 or 14. So those are the 3 options.
It can't be 14 then, can it? Because they're not going to fill it's impossible, isn't it?
I'm just saying those are the options currently for Super League next year. 10, 12, 14. Yeah, so they will vote on 10, 12 or 14.
It'll be 12. It cannot be 14. It cannot be 14. They can't fill the pegs. They cannot fill a 30-man squad.
That will break Mick Liddell's heart, because that means the mighty Bradford aren't coming up.
Why?
That doesn't mean anything.
I'd have thought Bradford
would be the first up.
What, in Bradford, Toulouse and York? You'd have to have Bradford as favourites, wouldn't you? Whether that's not my personal view, I'd have Bradford as favourites.
Well, as I've said,
because I think one thing they didn't have at Bradford.
How would they sort out that cap, Mick? Because it's 80% Australian.
What, the Bradford Bulls?
Yeah.
Well, that's
a great point.
That is it's not 80% Australian. You've got a couple of Papua New Guineans, New Zealanders. Yeah. Well, that was the point that Eamon O'Carroll and Brian Noble made last year, was a club coming up from the Championship should be granted a 12-month dispensation. So that is what Bradford would get. They would get 12-month dispensation.
To bring who they wanting?
No, not to bring who they're wanting. It would be based on the current players, what they have. Yeah. So effectively, to get it equalised, if we are, like you say, keeping the cap for next year, hopefully, like I agree with you, I think it needs to go. I think it needs to go for the greater good of the sport. But if the cap remains in place, those players that are on multiple deals in terms of not just one, they're on the last year, and then that's how it'll be equalised out. So again, Bradford could be at a bit of a disadvantage at that if they were to. Let's just say Super League stays at 12. Bradford end up in that 12th position on the IMG table. There's going to be some big recruitment decisions to be made.
I think they could do that with one. I do. I think they can do that one. So Bradford, say they keep 60% of retention. And then you've obviously got your dream of the... I'm not going to mention the names, it's not fair, but the ex-Bradford players who might not be getting a Super League, all the circumstances.
Yes.
We know there's 3 or 4 now who would head for Bradford. They would,
correct,
if the money was right. So you add that to
I call this Operation Homecoming. I know Jason Hurst might pull me up on that, but that is what I have called it. Operation Homecoming.
So there would be maybe that. I just can't see it being 3. I think that 3 now. York have got the most development players in my opinion, what I see, as in they've got players of a younger age, and probably 4 or 5 who could play at the top level, but Clint would have to make a big call on a lot of them, because it's all right. I love the fact that Clint, we used to love the fact that Clint generally, with us, has always kept his word about giving youth a chance. He has never wavered.
Well, he has recently.
Well, no, what he's done recently, he said, hey, there could be something coming here, I might have to top it with a bit of magic bish, and brings the big boys in. I don't blame him. If that apple's there, and he thinks, well, if I bring 3 or 4 in here, we could win it.
Top 2, yeah.
Without a doubt, I'd do it. The Bish signing could be the signing of the century, couldn't it? He could score, what's he got, 10 tries in 4 games? I mean, they reckon he's doing things that... So I can believe it.
Well, Bish is cooked hard for this weekend, so...
Oh, have you got him this week?
It's Bradford and York in the club.
Clint will be having you. Are you winter game? Clint...
I was there yesterday. To be fair...
Clint will have you in headlock, I'm telling you. Oh. Hey. Got a nice
Clint, I'm ready for you. Bring it on. I'll give you a big love in West Yorkshire. But by the way, watch out for a very, very, very special kind of preview show as well, which will preview a separate show where we look at those.
Your own station, mate.
We'll look at those. I'm doing it on here on Show Me the Money Rugby League TV. We'll preview both semi-finals and have a look towards the Super League as well. But no, it was interesting, you see, because I went to York and spoke to Mark Applegarth, and he actually, Galileo and Mata Afai, the Samoan they brought in, and Mark was actually saying, Clint's probably, I know Mark's very early in his coaching career, but he was saying, as a player, as a coach, he's never known anybody like Clint, and he was actually saying Clint is very full on, and Clint's almost like chairman, owner, recruitment manager, football manager, and he was actually praising Clint, for doing his due diligence in bringing Galileo and the Samoan player over. So it was just interesting that. But no, look, those 3 clubs, Craig, that are going to be in the mix whether Super League stays at 12 or goes to 14. It's going to be absolutely fascinating, because this weekend's game, York against Bradford, there's only 0.1 IMG points. The championship final, 0.25. But those extra...
So whoever wins this might win. That might give them the ticket to Super League.
That's how close I think it'll be. That's how close I think that is how close I think it'll be.
A month ago here, I tipped York to win it from where they were.
The 1895?
No, this is the Cup.
No, I tipped York to win the league.
They can't. It'd be so hard to win the league. I think it'll be
the greatest run ever.
It'd be the Cup that they're going for.
I think they can win both.
Well, I think they're all. I think York and Bradford are going for both.
I genuinely said it a month ago, I thought, and I still think it, I thought what they were doing. And I really, listen, I know we're having a bit of fun here with Bradford and York, they're all great clubs, but I just think that mix what York could have at the moment, McShane and them, they're just going to... You're talking top. Paul McShane could walk into a top 4 side now, guaranteed.
I watched the.
And they're rolling him at scrum half because sometimes he's finding it that easy. They're trying to get him on ball more at scrum half, and well, not more. But
against Sunsley, he was in the halves, and he was still pulling
the strings. So you've got Bish brought in, you've got these lads brought in on top of what they had. And you said Mash there and experience. I think Mash is. For a young man, he's had more Super League games, and we talk about coaches, and we've got journey with coaches.
I meant in a coaching sense, especially when another journalist asked the question. You're coming up against Brian Noble, who has been there, done it, won the T-shirt, and Mark sat there, bless him, and he says, "Well, yeah," he says, "I've not got any experience like that."
I'd be against that. I would be a 29-year-old coaching Wakefield, 35 coaching Wakefield first team. So I think that were a tough gig for a young kid anyway. I look at that, Mick, and I honestly, on my life, it's probably either money the field, and I think they've got momentum, and I think this special could happen. And you're right, Clint does do all that, but again, I thought with Bish. And we've said this for 3 years, we got offered Super League deals with Bish, and I can't believe that one of the clubs should have took him a year ago, because we get a lot of stats. Bish were doing things that he was doing in Super League. There's no difference.
Yeah, totally.
And
he's
kept his body in immaculate condition and his mind. And he said to me the other day, he's like, well, no, the only difference is I might have lost a tweak. He said, but I'm twice as strong. And he goes, I'm twice as, and I'm like, gee, that's date. So I think that Clint's loading up to fight, to go for it like you've never seen. And do you know what he's done clever? you'll understand this. Bradford to lose. Halifax had a little bit of a flair. Jimmy was saying, I think he had a few players there, so we thought it would a bit, but it's no offence to Halifax, that's a different world to get.
Yeah, and just a quick one on Halifax. They've now, like Brandon Douglas, the injuries are starting to bite.
Which we'd have thought, wouldn't we, that eventually.
It's been a great start, and I still think that start will save Halifax from being anywhere near them bottom 4 relegation spots.
So, if you look at the 3 riders now, the most of the pressure's on Bradford. I've not heard Clint or Mash say anything about going to Super League. Absolutely, very cutely. Now, underneath the quilts, I'm sure Clint's going, watch what's happening here.
Well, to be fair,
but I love that everybody mentions Bradford.
Oh, 100%. There's this obsession, There's this obsession from the fan base. I was talking to Brian Noble about it yesterday, that there is this unhealthy obsession.
Have you got that?
People mention... I'm very grounded.
Where do you think that's come from?
Well, has it come from me?
When they get them fans in Italy, and they get one bloke on mic and drum your Bradford.
The Bradford Ultra.
The Ultra. He's the Ultra.
I'm not. I'm very grounded, and there's a long, long way to go from where we are now in the middle of May to playoff time, but I will make the call, Craig. I think whoever is successful, 1895 Cup, Championship Grand Final, that will be enough to get them in.
What happens if one wins the other in the crazy world?
Well, get ready to get your calculator out, because I think it's going to be that close and that tight. And do not discount Huddersfield being dragged into this as well, because obviously they're going to drop more IMG points. As I said a few shows ago, because of the digitalisation now, a lot of clubs are going to drop IMG points because they have up the thresholds.
Quite interestingly, I will give people a bit of not a scoop, a bit of things. When about 2 or 3 years ago, when this was happening, probably longer, the top clubs in the Championship could not attract a Super League player who was borderline. And I said to 2 or 3 chairman CEOs, it's easy, give them a clause Super League, and if they think there's a chance, they'll take it. Well, one of the clubs have done that. They'd have 6 clauses for lads. If they come, they get Super League, they get this guaranteed. So that incentive, I can remember me telling, John Key remembers, I did it for John Key years ago when I walked in with the day. I said, John, do this and they'll come. They'll also get, what an incentive. If you get this, you've got 80 grand or something in Super League from earning 30. You can pack your job in, you're still young enough. And then it changes the format. One of them clubs will have a lot of that in place. It's not your...
I do this show independent, Craig. But look, I know we're going to do a separate preview of this weekend's games. But look, anyone watching this, that game, York against Bradford, and equally Oldham against Featherstone on Sunday, I think them two are going to be absolute rippers. But look, that particular, putting that spotlight on York v Bradford, I think that's going to have absolutely everything. You put those 2 squads, them 2 sides, side by side. You're a fan, you try and pick out the best 17 players. You're going to have pretty much a 50-50 split of York and Bradford players in that star-studded team. And I'm looking forward to it. As broadcasters, as commentators, we want to be involved in the big games, and there's going to be 4,000 plus fans there at the LNER. It's going to be magical, it's going to be electric. Such a shame that, as always with Championship these days, it's not on TV. But look, hopefully there's a big crowd there. But no, just the final one, Craig, on what we were talking about.
We're going to talk about Origin, weren't we?
And Salford, they have been hit with the HMRC thing. And as I said on the last show, it's going to be the end of this month. It's going to be the end of May where someone has to make a decision, and that'll be the Super League clubs. Do they pump the money in and keep Salford going? Or, as a few, I've heard this from a couple, they're saying, well, this is going to cost us over £500,000. This is money that's just going to go in a black hole. We're not going to see that money back. I hope to God that doesn't win the vote, because I think it would be an absolute shame.
Have Salford got one result?
Yeah, they beat Huddersfield.
See, that's a technical nightmare. That's a technical nightmare, because what you could do is, if it did go that, and let's hope it bloody doesn't, but if it did, everyone gets 2 points. It's easy. But if you've been beat by them, in the fairness of the game, you should have your 2 points deducted. So and then Huddersfield would say to other clubs, well, we want 2 points because you're going to get them without playing.
Yeah,
that opens up a loophole, which is a fucking nightmare.
And I know what I've just said probably won't happen because there's no way on earth they're going to have the penalties from Sky Sports on them if Salford can't fulfil the fixtures. But there's a long way to go on the Salford thing. But clearly Craig's got a lot of players there. I was out with some players.
Are the owners pretty much not pumping it in now? Is that
no? They have. They paid the last month. They paid early.
No, that was a sponsor who put that money in. That wasn't the owners.
I got all the texts. I got all. I've got 2 players left.
Yeah, that was
Salford, and they said they'd been paid early.
Yes, that was
the problem. Is then all this bad news has come afterwards.
Yeah, look, that wasn't from the owner.
That was from whatever.
And they have been depleting the central funding, which is now pretty much at zero.
Yeah.
So this is why May was always going to be.
But don't you think again? I know let's try and leave it after this one. Nigel's been brought in, and we talked about too many faceless people at the RFL and IMG where there's no connection. Why the fucking hell don't they do some clarity on it? When they hear somebody who's from the ambassador and from the game say, this is the plan, guys, we're going to go public with it. If you don't put up by that date, we will take Salford out of this competition. Or secondly, these are the options. We are going to have to put, each club's going to have to put 50,000 in out of the central development, and we'll get Salford to the end of the year. All them players then know they're guaranteed, so they're happy, right? Super League are happy, Sky are happy. We've got some leadership qualities, so we're all happy. What we don't want is this bollocks. No one's saying a word. And again, we're all guessing. How can it happen? Nigel's come in. This is his. You know what? If he came out now and he said, you know what? I'm going to be open about what's going to happen. If you were this for Dana White, he'll tell you. If this were Dana White now, he would be straight in camera and he'd say, these are 3 options. When they ask him, what's going to happen in this fight? These are your 2 options. I'll decide what would. Bang! It's all out there. We don't have that in rugby league. We never have it.
No.
Never, ever do we get somebody to come out and say to fans, poor old Salford fans don't know what to do for next year, don't know what to do. Give them something, what you're thinking about.
I think there is a lot of uncertainty. So Nigel or Tony Sutton, because don't forget, Tony is still CEO, top dog. Nigel's the chairman, making sure the right people are in the right positions in the RFL structure and hierarchy.
Well, they brought Nigel in because they say there's no voices. So
correct, yeah.
Get your voice out, Nigel.
And I do, believe you and me, I have said to Nigel on more than one occasion in the last month, there needs to be some transparency. Where are we heading with this? But I kind of guess with the Salford situation, with obviously the HMRC winding up order that I think was posted on the Gazette last night or yesterday. Again, there's a lot of uncertainty, Craig.
They brought out, let's be honest, they brought out that poor bloke who they've sacked now, who's left.
Chris Irwin, yes.
And they put him on Sky.
That was awful.
And I'll never let that happen again. I said at the time, if I'd have been there, they squared them all up, and I said...
Yeah, John Wilkin, Brian Carney.
Just what they did to a kid who were brought in, only just to help everything happen. Then they used him to hey, we give them straight questions. It were all about them. I'd have said to bloke, mate, what you want about? I've been here 8 weeks, trying to answer, and I'm the only person with guts to come and do this. So be careful when this anger, or they're aiming the players. Hey, I'm not bothered about owners, I'm bothered about players. So is he. He was just trying to keep a club. He's now got Paul King's back. Do you know that?
Yeah, that's well known.
So you're looking at it now, and again, I promise you, there has got to be somebody from the RFL who in the next 7 days comes out and says, these are the options.
Yeah.
Don't be scared of fucking saying clubs don't want this to know or Sky to know or HMRC. We all know anyway. But when we get fed it, no offence to journalists and people who guess, we get fed self-agendas. Because you only put out what you think will benefit. No offence, Mick, and this is not aimed at you, probably is. No, you might put things out, but bottom line is 25 journalists and people have got agendas.
Correct, yes.
They might have something wrong with coach, they might have this players, they might want, hey, if we get that, we get their players. There is loads of shit going off. the one person or the one team who should be fair is the RFL. Just tell us. Just have balls to tell us, or somebody come out and say, this is what we're doing. Do you get me?
Yeah, totally agree.
We're a sport who don't know what's happening there and don't know what the options are. We're just guessing. We also don't know about the 14 teams, 12 teams, 10 teams. And it's going into June. We're the only sport in the world where this could happen, Mick. I know. Year in, year out. And do you know what? And I've never said this publicly. My background, being a young man with business, Mick, I've told you this before. I was a very young lad to be involved.
Very successful.
Well, I was a very young man to be involved in business. I worked for Dad. Dad died of motor own. We were running factory with 60 employees as kids. I then went and did my own thing, did what we did. I came in then and thought I'd found something like the agency, which keeps me, out of trouble, keeps me busy, my mind occupied, whatever. We've done property developments. I built whatever you want to say. I have never known a successful company not be run by leadership. Honestly, Mick, I can't believe it. I can't believe that no one's coming out and doing it. I've never known it. Do you think Vlandis won't give you some transparency by now?
Oh, crikey, if you're talking about how the Australians and Peter Vlandis operates, then 100% there would have been probably 2 or 3 press conferences where, I can't say too much on what's happened with the RFL and Salford, but there's certainly one that I'm aware of that I've had confirmed a horror story that's happened, which has kind of accelerated the mess that we're in. So I think the Landis would have got a hold of the situation and been transparent and put it out there, and probably, even if it is the clubs have got the power, we don't have the power, the clubs are going to make a vote in May whether or not Salford are propped up by their money or they are punted, and we operate Super League as a level team.
Going on Volandis and how the NRL does it, I think there's something to be said that we know more about their views on all the situations to do with the RFL, to do with Super League. We know what their plans are. We know that if they do come in, it's going to be Super League Europe. We know which clubs they're going to pick. And so we know more about this imaginary idea that about 8 people in the NRL have, because they are more transparent, more open than we do with the current leadership of the RFL that have run the thing. We don't have a clue about what's actually going in our comp, but the ones who could take over in 2 or 3 years on a 10% chance, we know the step-by-step process. So,
I had to listen to Shane Richardson, who is now the CEO.
Oh, you poor thing.
Well, he was the CEO of Rabbitohs, did a fantastic job in the day. Now he's at...
he was also in charge of Gateshead when he ran Gateshead into the ground and they ran out of money, and
let me finish.
They had to merge with Hull.
He then went into... He's now at West Tigers.
I believe so, yes.
So he did a podcast about... I don't know if it was a bit of deflection, because it was all about the young lad who was leaving. He said, next, we're on Super League. And he's given this opinion, and whether you like him, I think there's a lot of agendas with him.
100%.
And I think he was always very close to Big G.
Correct.
So when I heard that, this is what it needs to be this, and then they were like, this Salford situation wouldn't be happening. That's not going to get them clubs. And I'm thinking, God, is he pushing for London here? Is this a London? Because the agenda again. But he did have some opinions. At least I respect him so much that he had, what Joe's saying is exactly right. At least he had some opinions on our game. We can't even get an opinion off anybody. We're not even allowed to have an opinion. I'm not mentioning his name, so probably don't want me to. There's a CEO I really, really respect. There's quite a few I respect. There's an owner, and he's been pushing publicly for me to have this thing with Nigel. And it comes on the show, and he's put it on Nigel 10 times. And Nigel said, as he said to you said that he would do it. We've never got to that point. We've been saying this for 3 years. Let me finish.
Nigel will come on this show.
But let me tell you.
I think the waters need to be less choppy.
Yeah, but let me tell you. So I said, as I would only allow it if we was allowed. Now, I don't mean fans putting 200 questions in and Nigel getting under pressure about somebody, maybe whatever. But I said, we have to have an open... So this is the first thing I'd open up. Say, Nigel, let's talk about Salford. I think it'd be amazing for the game and amazing for Nigel. If we want to all follow Nigel to the promised land and get behind him, I promise you we will. If he can, whatever you think in Nigel past, we know he's a custodian of the game. We know he's a study of the game. We know things, whatever. But if Nigel come on and shown that, it'd be a mind blower. It'd be a mind thing because now what usually happens here is Sky will probably get this. They'll ask Nigel to do it with them, but it'll be agenda driven. It'll be how they do it to get likes. Ours won't. Ours is a genuine lover of the game.
Correct.
Ours is saying to Nigel, come on, son, give us something.
Nobody wants to see Salford go, or if Salford do unfortunately go,
Well, Salford fans would say Nigel would be the wrong person to say that because he's trying to get Bradford in. The self agenda would come out. He'd have to be asked that. I'd ask him it. I'd say, right, so do you gain if Salford? But now I don't know whether me telling this guy that to Nigel then makes the Nigel think. Because I've said before, Nigel will tie me in knots, and I don't mind being tied in knots as long as we get truth out.
Craig, you've been to Nigel's house. It's a shrine of rugby league memorabilia, but you've said he is, one of the best negotiators you've ever seen. Carl Hall's even said that, to be fair.
He is as good as anybody I've ever seen. He's as knowledgeable as any I've ever seen. Whether he's as straight, that's going to be proved. When the eyes lock, you've got to talk man to man. And this is what I think are doing Wilder good. And I just think we do anyway. Forget about all that. I just think the 14 teams, the Salford, forget about our personalities. It just needs somebody to fucking give some clarity somewhere. So frustrating with the only sport where every year this only happens to us. We're going to have 4 relegation, 2 relegation, this franchise. We are like that changing every time.
I totally agree, Craig.
And we're only even halfway through the season, no one's got a clue. We're all getting it.
It's even worse if you're tied in with the League One Championship situation.
It's a balloon, isn't it?
It's even worse.
Just a quick one on League One and Championship. We've heard the proposals, merge both together into conferences.
Should have been done years ago.
Joe, your thoughts on that? You have more players than anyone. Jimmy's not here to obviously take that crown, but you have a lot of players in League One champ. What's your thoughts on it? 'Cause that's what they're going to vote on in July. Do we rip up League One? Do we toss away the Championship and we merge everybody together and then make conferences out of one big league?
Like you said, I think there's a big appetite for most. I've not heard many naysayers, to be honest. I think the only naysayers might be the ones that are Carson are already big teams, maybe Toulouse, I don't know, like I said. But in terms of local derbies, in terms of revenue, in terms of stabilising the league, I think all them arguments make complete sense, and they've got to do it, haven't they? Because, like I said, at the moment there's 4 Lancashire teams in League One, then there's only 1 or 2 in Champ, and then the other way around in Yorkshire. But that flip flops every 2. Then you've got the Cumbrian. It makes sense that we can get them all together, playing the teams who provide the local derbies, provide the bigger fan bases, especially in them lower leagues. I think I disagree at Super League level that it's got to be all about the income for the ticket sale, the gate receipts and all that. But in terms of League One and Champ, I think it's got to run off that, and that's what keeps clubs stable and alive at the end of the day.
You know basketball more than everything. There's Eastern Conference, there's this conference. If they merged 2 together and did conferences, then we all went into a playoffs.
That's what they're looking at.
Fantastic.
That's what they're looking at.
What's negative about that?
Well, what the feedback I've had from some of the Championship clubs is the concern is that you probably, if you're going to have, say, we don't know how the conference is, we don't know if it's going to be a straight east or west or whether it'd be a north or south and east and west.
Do a quick one. West Yorkshire.
The worry, Craig, is that there'll be blowout scores. There'll be a few blowout scores.
And then the longer travels in it.
But that would equalise. I'm a firm believer, if you were to put a Rochdale, let's use Rochdale Hornets, you put Rochdale Hornets and Swinton in with Widnes, Oldham.
So not the longer travel, the ticket sales, if you know what I mean? Then I think
you're going to have a few blowout scores to start with.
And the Bradford Featherston's playing like the North Wales Crusaders or the Newcastle away fans.
You'd go into the big league halfway through, wouldn't you?
They only provide 10
That's the only negative thing.
Let me tell you. So let's put that one. So you just said there. Let's say there's 6 clubs in Lancashire. Yeah. So there's Rochdale, Swinton, Oldham, Widnes.
Well, no, that's it.
That's it.
So
North Wales training Lancashire, don't they?
yeah, let's throw North Wales in there.
Yeah, to be fair,
Where would Midlands go? I'd throw them in there. Or I'd throw in Yorkshire. So let's say you split.
Well, the difficult ones you've got are the three Cumbrian clubs, Newcastle, Midlands, and London Broncos.
Well, potentially, I'd put them, let's say we put them in Lancashire. Let's just say you put them in Lancashire. Then you stop at Huddersfield's boundary there, Oldham. So you split it there, and all them are there, and then you've got that there. So Goole, Doncaster, 2 leagues, and then in June, the top 4 of each one go and play each other. The bottom 4 go and play each other. So I'll even the blowouts.
Yeah, and if...
Where's your negative?
Well, I never said...
Transport costs will be the blowouts will be all right, because they'd rather have a go. A team would rather have a go at Bradford, knowing that Bradford will bring a few thousand than they will travelling 200.
Well, Bradford will be in the Super League next year, so it'll be probably Salford, Craig. Yeah, no.
You know what I'm saying? They would rather have a go at... If I own Doncaster, and I'm in that northern section... I'm chuffed to death that Bradford are in there, because I'm thinking, at least I'll get a big gate, so I'll earn some money. Secondly, I'm not bothered if they beat us, I'll have a go at them.
Well, Doncaster, it's only half an hour from York, so
I wouldn't be bothered.
Yeah, well, that one's, it's more, like you said, it's more what do you do with...
The difficulties are like your outposts,
like Toulouse,
your
if Toulouse
Londons.
don't make it, then you've got
That's just try and make them stronger by giving them that support.
I mean, Carcassonne...
When we had Donny, do you know when we had Donny, Joe? We had Doncaster. We was Champ 1, obviously, but they had the Northern Rail in them days, so you played each other. We loved it. We beat Batley in semi-final. We beat 3... We beat...
It's still the 1895.
Yeah, whatever it's called. A Northern Rail in the day. We loved them fixtures. We played Celtic at home. Got a great crowd, and 2 minutes to go there, fullback went and won game for them. We had them. We couldn't believe it. They were like favourites to go Super League. They were favourites for Champions. We destroyed them. They didn't know what hit them. So we had a great time playing Championship clubs. Honestly, we played Windus in the Challenge Cup. It was only time we got a check for 25,000. It was perfect. We got big crowds. So for me, to build them smaller clubs to be successful, it'd help them. It'd help them a lot. Now, the bigger club might have a problem with
that's what I'm saying.
They might say, but I just think if the fans are not travelling as far, they'll be all right as well. I think it'd be perfect. And then you say to Nigel at Bradford, once June comes, you can have the cream of the crop, and then you'll earn some proper attendances. Then it'll go up another level. So what you lose there, you'll get back, because then the big boys will be together. Do you get me? Then they'll get the big crowds.
Because then you waste 8 clubs there.
No, why? What do you mean?
In the lower leagues, in the lower section of the...
No, they're still playing for a cup. They're still playing. It's still on.
They're not. What are they playing for? You'd make it a lower league.
Yeah, you'd make a prize money, or you'd have some competition.
To be fair, if you are merging...
I don't think that would work.
If you're merging League 1 and Championship, there'd have to be a cut-off point anyway.
Of course.
You couldn't have a top 8. I think it'd have to be, as it is now, a top 6.
Yeah, and a playoff system.
Yeah.
That's very
Then
late
they'd all
in
come
the
together
year,
and
innit?
play each other.
But I do agree with Craig, and this was a League 1 owner did say that they don't want to. They want to move away from Championship and League 1 terminology, but there would be, the elite trophy, and then there'd be a plate trophy underneath, so that those clubs still had something to play for. I know it wouldn't be anywhere near as,
You'll still get a final. You'll still get a final at Headingley or a final.
Yeah, and that was brought up rather than
Brilliant.
The Championship final being held at the highest placed club. Get it back to the neutral days. I used to love going to Warrington or Headingley or Leigh to cover the Championship and League 1 playoffs.
Well, if I'm already done it and I don't get in that top 8 to go in that what they're going to do, and then I'm in the bottom one, I'm still happy as well. I'm saying, right, we'll try and win it.
You've still got something to
There's
play
a bonus.
for,
They'll have to get me something to win it, and I get in a final and be fine. But I'm playing in my own standard. My players are getting better and better, because I'm trying to, a lot of positives for me.
Yeah, well, there you go. There's a long way to go on this. This will be in July, but hopefully, pray to God the Salford situation shows signs of improvement. And like we say, I do agree with Craig and Joe. We've got to stop restructuring. We've got to stop ripping stuff up before we've even give it really a chance to bed in and develop. But that's the rugby league way, it seems. We had the Super 8s, we ripped them up. We went to IMG, we're ripping that up. We're now going to something else. Right, I'm going to put you on the spot, Craig. Someone put a rumour out about Mr. King at Warrington that he might be he might be moving to another Super League club. Is that
No.
Is that bollocks? Is he out of contract this year?
Yeah.
Right. There we go. No, that was on X, Twitter last night.
Yeah,
So
no.
there we go. We've heard it from the horse's mouth. I think it was a lady called Sarah who said, "Can I ask you? Is that true?"
We're in talks, and I can't announce it's the clubs.
Yeah,
They have to do that.
yeah. So there you go. I'm sure you.
It's buzzing.
Yeah.
It's buzzing. TK, it's buzzing.
Oh, listen, I've watched Toby King this year, Craig, and wow. You know, his performance in the semi-final. Wow, yeah.
And to be fair to Warrington, he's just had his testimonial. Yeah, he's probably doing. Toby's as tight as a submarine door. So him having his. I like that one. I'm going to say as tight as your belt, Mick, but he's as tight, and he's just had his testimonial year, and he's a little bit of fun for people. When a player gets testimonial, everyone thinks, "Oh, it gets loads of money." They don't. They only get what they put in. You've seen him, Mick at Bradford. Joe's seen him. You're probably going to do 23 different things. You have to be absolutely everyone. Even it's signing 10 tops in Cumbria and a night out it's $5,000. You're there. So Toby will work this. I think Toby could be flying, in his endeavour to get it. So I think Warrington have been fantastic with him. He had a big gala dinner the other day. I don't think I got the invitation, to be honest. It took me a bit by surprise. But anyway, he's had about 6 dues already. Lee brought nearly 3,000, 2,000 odd when they played that friendly. It were crazy. We were there and it were crazy. I think partnership men in heaven at the moment. He'll probably want to pay them and with loyalty and what he's done. And they've, the only time it went Pete Tong is when whatever Powley didn't fancy him or he didn't fancy Powley, didn't he? Then it went for a year. It went on he ended up winning the grand final. And I'd love to see, a bit of fun. I'd love to see Mayor of Warrington. I think that they don't ever. I'd have brought that up 50 times, honestly. When Mayor of Warrington to come out and give me the opinion on Toby and George, saying, "Do you know about that?"
No.
Well, that's what happened. So 3 years ago, the Mayor of Warrington must have publicly slaughtered George and Toby, or maybe Toby. It went public everywhere. So I think he was bad. He's now been sat at the rail on. He publicly slaughtered Toby, saying that was at the time he went to Wigan. I don't think he's there anymore, but the rail on it were everywhere.
They got the mayor out the town.
The mayor?
The town of Warrington.
Talking about how to improve Warrington, he said, well, they could do with, I think he's overrated and lots on the rail on, yeah. I think Toby and George had killed him.
Wow. Wow. Well, we've just had a little bit of a healthy discussion about what may or may not happen in July.
Breaking news, Mick Gledall, breaking news.
We've got some breaking news, apparently.
Gary Carter on the Twitter saying Salford City Council withdraws from dealing with Sire Kalihi, Curtis Brown and Jacobson management over a stadium and land deal after it was not possible to progress negotiations. The Red Devils owners' next home move will be very interesting. So they're not the new owners that have come in to get the land, to get the stadium as part of their group, are not getting it, Mick.
Well, I don't think that'll come as a shock or a surprise. We always kind of suspected and knew that these owners, I've used the word unscrupulous, and I don't think I'm being unkind to these owners, but word on the street is they didn't really ever care about the Salford Rugby League Club. They were always first and foremost and fundamentally in it for the land and a land power grab whereby professional rugby league in Salford at the AJ Bell Stadium would be secondary, thirdly. It certainly would not be primary, which is what Salford City Council always said. The rugby league club has to come first. It can't be about the land. So this does not come as surprising or shocking news. It probably means even more so for what we were discussing at the start of this show. Salford are on life support now, and it is going to be very, very interesting where this goes, because, you know, as you said, Craig, there's players, there's coaching staff, there's supporters. You know, nobody wants to see a club fall by the wayside, but I think the kind of inevitableness about this sad, depressing situation at this moment in time is it probably is heading one way and one way only, and I just hope it doesn't go there. But if it does, I hope the players, the staff, get that support, and certainly, you know, hopefully, touch wood, when the Super League clubs meet next week, they put the funds up to fund Salford as a going concern till the end of the season. But whatever happens, there's no easy way out of this for Salford, unless somebody's going to come in and clear the 3.5. I mean, someone said to me that the debts could be near 5 million. You know, I know people are obviously speculating. No one really has full access to the accounts, but people saying the debts are past 3 million, you know, potentially as high as 5 million. So history tells you, Craig, those knights in shining armour, when previous clubs, you know, like Bradford, like Widnes, like York, like Keighley, who have all gone bust in recent seasons, there was no knight in shining armour that came in and cleared every pence in the pound of that rumoured 3.5 million upwards worth of debt.
We don't know who the owners are, and again, because they haven't come out publicly, we've complained about the NFL not coming out publicly in Japan. We've never heard anything of the owners. That's always worrying. When you're going to buy a club, you make it clear publicly what you're going to do, so then everyone can believe in you. If you don't go public, I always think if it goes the other way, they can just slip through the back door and it's see you later. But we've given them every chance to come up with. That's a big statement by the council to say they've broke talks. I just had a text off a player, you know, saying that's last straw, that's brought the camel's back, that, you know, that they know now that the owners might have used this so they don't have to do it. You know, that's been told now. They can blame the council and say, it wasn't us, it's them, it's the council.
The perfect excuse from the owner's point of view.
If they want out, and if they've realised how big the hole is, and if there is a big hole, they should come out and say the reason we haven't done it is this hole's bigger than we dreamt about. And then that should go back to historic people. You know, then you need to go and look at how they've been allowed to trade. The RFL should be shot. If they've been running in negative equity at that level, which they obviously, to amass that type of figure, that's not just this year, that's 5 years worth of debt, just rolling it on, pinching Peter to pay Paul, not paying VAT, not paying your thing. That's some real cash accounting. Big problems. And then you need to identify why that were allowed to happen within a structure of a RFL, you know, where they haven't gone in and audited it proper and gone, what the are you doing? The easiest way to audit a company is to see whether they pay tax, but it's usually the first thing you can do. If the 300 grand behind taxable, you know, they're using that tax money for wages.
Well, I think that's why the HMRC have filed the winding up order petition.
So they're saying it's as bad as it gets, but as I say, historically, this is what I felt sorry I said to you again, that guy went on Sky that day. How they put it on him, I'll never know. And it broke my heart in two. They should have been asking the questions to at least 500 individuals and not them. They can't be, even poor old Paul Rowley, why should Paul have to answer it? He's a coach. Do you know what I mean? The people who answer it has to be the CEOs and the owners and the people who were. I mean, I can't believe we're having the conversation with a guy who'd been there 6 weeks and he got absolutely plateaued. They've got rid of him now. Paul King's got to answer everything. You don't have to say. Do you know what I'm saying? You don't have to say Paul's been there as CEO, I think, or were it pleasing? I don't know what. However, for the last 5 years historically, somebody should say, right, what was it like each year? And has this been a current deal going? Has this been just nightmares from? And when it comes out, what the fans have put in. I mean, if it's true what happened with Bradford when we got 500 odd grand, we were all part of the fundraising, and then that 200 odd grand of that went to liquidator. That's what scares me more than out. Where's fans? I don't know how much if they've paid for their membership early, they've all put in. Honestly, I cannot believe that we publicly let working class people put money over to save the club that were then getting just paying historic debts. That's what it sounds like to me.
And going back to your earlier point, Craig, about the RFL, Tony Sutton, Nigel Wood, now with this news, I think somebody, and I mean, we're doing this show while this news breaks, but when we've done this show, I'm certainly going to call the RFL. I'm going to say, so you're going to have to put somebody up. Someone's going to have to come out with a statement and let everybody know what is going on.
Yeah.
You know, there's too much speculation. Just come out and say it. If the Super League clubs are going to control the fate of Salford,
transparent.
Yes, we will pump our own money in to keep you going so we don't get penalised by Sky. So be it. But at the same time, 3 or 4, and I totally understand this, why would they want to put that money in there knowing it's just going to go into a bottomless pit?
Well, that's the only thing you can say. The new owners, they might have done some due diligence and gone, Jesus Christ, this is, and they daren't say it public because Salford are saying, don't put that out there, for God's sake, this will stop anybody else coming in. So you don't know. We can't condemn the new people unless they got a chance to come in. What I would say is when they haven't gone public. Do you know what they do? Somebody clever, Nick, when they're buying a company out, they let the supporters know early. So if you're trying to get the Presidente of Barcelona and it's coming up, I go out and campaign. I think they've not campaigned publicly enough to say we want to save this club. This is what we want to do. They've done it. We got the feeling that they wanted the land in the first week. Everyone said, well, they don't want the rugby.
Yeah, they want the land.
Why didn't the spokesman immediately for the RFL or them come out and say, no, we've got assurances they want the rugby club. We haven't.
There wasn't, so it's allowed it to fuel, and here we go with the council, the straw that breaks the camel's back. No more, deal off. Oh, wow. Joe, your thoughts, you're quiet on all this.
I thought I'd let my dad handle the load there. He's talking well, but no, it's like I don't really know what other thoughts you can give other than it's really sad. They have to go. There's been a couple of like historic documents made by some other good YouTubers that have been out there and followed each separate. Your friends over at our now rivals, to be fair, Mick, they've now come for us, haven't they, and outdoing us in a lot of Is It All Out? But no, that's not sure. We've handled their podcast. It's your mates who from the new.
I don't know what you're on about.
Forgetting the name. I actually watched.
Joe's going into one here. Go on then, Steve Mascad.
No, the new YouTubers.
The two young lads.
I get on with Steve Mascad.
No, he's not taking on what I'm trying to say. It's so. Anyway, they've done historic documents on Salford. It has to be tracked. There was a couple of years ago where they did that haunts me, as Dad said. The one I don't know any information on it, but I just remember them saying if you want to put credit towards Salford Red Devils, and there was hell on about it, weren't they? What the fans could put credit. I can't remember whether that actually went ahead or not. I know they certainly tweeted it and made it a thing.
No,
if that went ahead, and that's where, and if this is where we're at now, it makes you want to cry, doesn't it? It means people.
And I'll tell you what I do believe, and I do believe this. For all the people who've been part of Salford's success in the last 10 years, there's not one person gone in there and hadn't really wanted to do the best thing for Salford. I do firmly believe it was. Problem B is when them years they finished in top 4 and grand final, Challenge Cup final, we know our sense, they never had any money. So nobody put any money in. So that was just done on having a smaller squad, not having an academy. They allowed them, the RFL, to do all that, let's be honest. They put all the 1.8 into 24 players. And they managed to pay coaches out of because there was no other money.
Yeah, because you're not, with the greatest respect to Salford, you're averaging 3,000 fans. You're not getting, you're
That's
not
just
generating money.
Stadium. There'd always been a dead stadium. They've been going, oh shit, we only got this. So, bottom line is we allowed it to happen. We watched them in a grand final, watched them in a Challenge Cup final, without knowing this madness was going to come. If every custodian of the sport actually admits it, they were saying it 5 years ago. They were saying
not sustainable
because they knew there was no money, man. They knew. So then you've got your people who were there now, the 3 or 4 people. I do believe they've all tried to do their best. I think you could say Police did a fantastic job, managed to make sure it didn't drown in that period. He's managed to manage and get him into a final, 2 finals, and still keep going. Then you've got Paul King, who's been there at the time. Then you've got this new guy. Then you've got now. I just think somebody should have said to him, above them all, independently, the RFL should have said, guys, you're not running a business. Every year you finish, you're owing $500,000 for next year and you're riding your luck. You're not paying tax, you're not paying your VAT. It's horrendous. They were still signing Jackson Hastings and Croft when they must have been showing losses of million. You know what I mean? Because that, let me tell you,
it's a
3
dereliction,
million, whenever the debt comes out, I'll guarantee you this, a business, you will track that back 5 or 6 years. That won't be just, it's happened in the last 3 months. No, they'll probably paid wages in last year, but they've probably been all right. It'll track back to 2019. I'm like, how have they got away with that? And you know why they've got away with it, don't you? Because RFL have always given monthly money. Do you get me? For all the shit that's gone off, they've got this 200 grand check from the 1.8 million that's managed to get them through, hasn't it? The lifeline's been the central funding, let's be honest. And then they've got the sponsorships. I'm not saying they aren't, but you get me? So the people who should have been watching it all are giving them.
I agree, Craig, I agree. And if it's true, and I know I mentioned this on a few shows back, but if it's true, and this is constructive criticism of the RFL here, if it's true that Tony Sutton and Simon Johnson, going right back to the start of the season when there was speculation and rumour that Salford might not reach the starting line, and there was someone in Toulouse to replace them, someone in Bradford, someone in London, etc. But if it is fundamentally true that these new owners, they've showed forged bank accounts, or they've shown the RFL money that does not exist and isn't there, and then the RFL have taken that as gospel, given a green tick to Salford, then you are right, Craig. Heads at the RFL should roll over this, because this is self-inflicted
and again, we can't
by the governing body.
Say about the new. It is. But as I said, I'm still going to stick up for the owners. We don't know yet the reason they wanted it. We don't know the reason. They should have come out and said they've got. This is the time now. They have got to come out with something for their own credit to say, well, actually, the reason we wanted it was because we didn't want the stadium, and that was the only reason. Once that's gone, I just think that could be a way of them getting out of that. And I think, and I'd be honest with it, if I were them, I'd say, mate, if you looked into what we've just looked into for the last 6 months, you'd run faster than them legs can carry you. This is not, they told us it's 800 grand debt. It's treble. Yeah, and if it's treble, you'd run as fast as your legs could carry it. And any human being in the world with half a brain and does the same. So don't. Some people always put it on owners. These that created that debt, make these new people stick up for them. They've not created the debt. Do you get me? They've not done it. They've got to fight. I hate it when they go new owner. They do it at Man U with that guy. What's he called? Jim Ratcliffe was trying to put all things wrong. They've been running a loss of £68 million a year. They've been running it, giving people money from absolutely. And he's a businessman. He's going, what the? And they're slaughtering for it.
Well, I couldn't believe it.
And he's trying to run a business. He's trying to say, no, this is ridiculous.
I must admit, on that Jim Radcliffe, when you read the investigation, I know if you're a Man U fan, you probably think is this, is that, but when they're giving staff like £20 a day, free meals, and you've got 1,300 members of staff, you tell me another job where you're getting £20 plus for free meals a day. It's scandalous.
Mick, they were saying they're giving free tickets of about 4,000 home game to people who've had a link into the club, and it's just not. No, he's gone. That's not right.
You don't run a business.
No offence to Ferguson. I love Ferguson. There should be in statues. There is to give Fergie as an ambassador $3 million a year for turning up at home games. You know what I mean? And so he's made some calls that's made it bad. I admire people like that. I admire people. So these new people who go in, don't all put the blame on them. I promise you, you can't. You can't blame them and go, they've not caused the debt. They've caused that they've been allowed to come and give people false hope. That's caused. They haven't caused the debt. But what they're very clever is make people do. Have you seen it? We used to call it this in business, the fart in the room. So if you fart and move and Joe's left stood there, they all think it's someone's fart. Do you know the culprit? He's gone. Do you get me? I know people with legendacy, they walk past your roof and you sat there, you're like that, and you're thinking the smells with Joe. This smell shouldn't be with these. It should be with the person who's fat. You know what I mean?
It should be. I didn't let.
No. But look, my opinion, and I'll stick to it. The RFL should have adjudicated this, managed this a lot better over the period of 6-7 years.
100%.
You've been allowed to go to grand finals and give Salford fans the false hope of the best ever, when actually their shit were running at a loss of millions, and they didn't have a Simon Moran, they didn't have a Ken, they didn't have a Hull KR, they didn't have a we didn't have the money, man.
The question
what we call the get out of jail man, do we?
Yeah. The question I fundamentally want to ask the RFL is this. If it's true when Michael Carter was in there and he uncovered all these, because he was in caretaker charge at the start of the year, and he's uncovered all these like payday loans. So we know Salford have had money advanced from the RFL. Who at the RFL?
It's the payday loans as well.
Who at the RFL? This is what I want to know.
Like loan sharks.
I'm going to look at the camera now as if I'm talking to Nigel Wood or Tony Sutton, but who at the RFL, has allowed Salford to be advanced the sports money, the games money, that they've been advanced it, knowing there's all this debt, there's all the payday loans, it's this madness, it's madness. The RFL are culpable as much as the previous owners, the current owners, because they've allowed this mess to happen.
Well, hey, by the way, welcome back to the full 80, Mick Level. That's the first time since he's been the cheerleader for Nigel Wood. He's been the Alistair Campbell for Nigel since they got him back in. The first time the boot's gone back into the RFL. I'm nearly emotionally crying. The King's back. In his heyday, he put the boot in about this like you've never
No, I fundamentally look at this logically, and if, you speak to Derek, you speak to Matt Ellis, Richard Fewlis at Huddersfield, they're basically saying we're going to have to sort this mess out and we're going to have to vote on whether or not we pump our money in, the games money, to keep Salford going. So it's affecting everybody. And that money will never be clawed back.
If it's as bad as you think, there's only one they're going to have to do, I'll tell you now. They're going to have to give everyone 2 points and set a Sky, take $1 million off that end. I think to get them through, if it's this bad, and again, we shouldn't be speculating on people's lives, it's horrendous. We don't know what has happened. We don't know if the new investors are just going to say, come out with a statement tomorrow. So we're not bothered about that. We're here for the rugby. Let's give them all a chance. But if it is that bad, I tell you now, it has to be this time. And you just have to set a Sky, there's nothing we can do. And if that experience of that deal of each game costs you 200,000 views and participate that into money, that's 100 grand a game. Take them, let them take it. I'd say, I don't think you can. I think the damage to the game's too much now.
Yeah.
I think the damage to the integrity of that game and the main thing, the player welfare and the coach's welfare has now got to a period. Now, after today, that is as bad as it gets. Paul Rowley, that said other week, somebody who knows him really well, said Paul didn't look good. He's starting to look like he's got the world on his shoulders. I think for a mental health and player welfare and coach welfare and supporters, poor supporters who've gone through all this, I would say that the kindest thing you can do at this point is say, listen, pull up stumps. You have to start again, get some new people behind you, get the council involved, create a new club. Because no one in the right mind is going to come and take a debt.
Yeah, nobody. All this talk of NRL money, nobody in the right mind is going to come in, pump $4 million in to clear the current debt. No.
Unless the council throw stadium in for note. And that's the only way, because stadium's worth 12 million. So what happened with us at Donny? Some people came in, they're like, right, can we get the council to give us stadium? And we'll do it. But we want the stadium. I said, well, stadium's worth 16 million. Why would fucking council give you 16 million, What, do you get me? So that was stupid. So listen, best of luck. We'll be busy this afternoon with them 2 players we've got. It'll be hell. Are they playing tonight or tomorrow?
Sunday afternoon.
Sunday.
Is the game tonight?
Yeah.
Yes, it's St Helens against Catalans.
Yeah, well, they've got 3 days of hell. I mean, I don't even know how we can prepare a team again. I just think it's absolutely.
They had everyone back as well for this week.
And if they do it, let's look on the devil's advocate. If they do say we'll take it over, and we'll get it through till end of year. Let's say they do that, which is purely the winding up order, not going to allow them to do it anyway.
Craig, I'll be honest.
You get me? Because what they're going to say is, let me tell you what they're going to say now is, if they pay 50 grand to pay wages, we are asking a business to say, we're going to carry on, even though we owe you a lot of money. We're going to carry on just on this little bit. Is that all right? A famous business lad the other day was learning business the other day. I want to stay in business, but I only want to take on that little bit of it. I says, oh, well, fucking lovely. What about other 85% of the shit? It don't work like that to say. It don't work like that to say. You're going to take on. So I don't think the inland revenue and that'll allow that. They'll go, what? You want to just keep on paying little there to make it right for you? What about the taxpayer? What about these companies who own thousands and thousands? And that wage going in, if the liquidator gets in, which it will, everything that went in has to be evenly proportioned to your pay. You can't pick and choose just to keep playing players. You've got to pay your debts. they'll all, if somebody does carry on, they liquidate it. Look at what Bradford did. We got a 5-6 grand debt. We got a letter saying, do you accept 10%? You've got to vote whether you take. They'll bust it or they give you 600 quid.
It's a very, very delicate, depressing situation. Hopefully there is some light at the end of the tunnel and positive news. Just a quick one, actually. Paul Wellens, St Helens. I know I did the big prediction. He's still in the hot seat, under a lot of pressure. Just how much pressure, Joe, Craig, is Paul Wellens
obviously with the fans a lot. What I heard, you know what I mean, what's reported about what happened at the game with some of the fans and whatever they've said to Paul, horrendous.
Yeah, the personal abuse, not for me.
It's not for anyone, surely. It's absolutely disgusting. A lot of people have been saying, Jack, you should still be there for the fans. I'm on Jack Welby's side. If I was a player, my coach who's brought me in, who I like, who I respect as a legend, gets in, so I'm not then. But anyway, that aside, I think, yes, he's under pressure, but I think the board, I think they're backing him, Mick. I think they've seen what he has done is that he's gone into a team that I don't think it's possible for them to win it. KR are too good. Wigan are too good right now, as Saints were 2 years ago. Saints, whatever conversation we're having, Saints were in that top. They're not anymore, and it's impossible for them to be consistently year on year. But what in this last year they have done, which I don't think, so I'll challenge you on what you've not given them enough respect for, is that they bought through George Whitby, who they're saying is going to be the best young half-back in the comp. They bought through Harry Robertson, who I watched in academy in these games. Absolutely, he was the best player in the academy, and that's including players we look after that I love and that I think are world class. Harry Robertson ripped up the academy better than I've ever seen anyone rip up the academy. So you've got them two who Wellens they're now Whitby's 5, Robertson's I got injured, but maybe 8, 9, 10 games in. You've got all these players. They've got Owen Dagnall that keeps making the squad. Who's a freak of a winger. Who's unbelievable. He's breeding them in. He's making big calls. Whether the Johnny one were right or wrong, he's making big calls and he's making systematic changes to bring Saints back to the top. So for all the nightmares with the results and maybe his lack of biffing now and his lack of oomph now when he does his interviews, he's not quite making that big thing that's making the fans follow him. He's making big calls and he's making changes to the club that I think will provide them long-term success. Whether that long-term success is going to be with him in charge or not, that's probably the argument that you're going to have. But I do like some of the stuff that he's done, so I'll give him a bit of support. Obviously, the on-field performance, some of the games, they've looked bad. But in terms of the calls and the movement and the youth, utter respect for Paul, because it'll be one of them where they'll win the Super League again in 4 or 5 years and they'll go, Whitby, legend, Robertson, legend, Dagnall, legend, hey, Murphy, hey, who brought all these players in? Wellens, buddy, were crap. Right, I think you've got to give him respect for making these big goals.
So what you're saying, Joe, is Saints fans, you're going to have a little bit of short-term pain.
Obviously, yeah.
You're going to lose a few more. You might not make the playoffs. You might end up outside the playoffs, but because you're blooding these young future stars like your Whitbys, your Dagnalls, your Robertsons, there will be that long-term success. So I presume, back or sack, you're backing Wellens.
For now, yeah.
Craig, your thoughts on the
Joe,
situation?
I think that's Joe's best ever speech, by the way.
Well done, Joe.
I think he explained that.
Producer Sam, can we have a gold star? We'll put it on Joe's best.
I think he explained it great. I think that's...
No, was it
I'm trying to think who I've said that to on phone who was listening to when I've been saying it.
Yeah,
but he's perfect. I think he's doing
Are you accusing him of spying and he's dropping?
He can't handle me doing well. He can't handle me doing well.
He's got to be given a little bit more time. He's got the loyalty of Rushy. They don't want another Kieran Cunningham. That's a terrifying thing. I spoke to Mike about that. You know, a legend of the club, and eventually never, because the things that happen. So I think they're going to give Paul would never flamboyant as a player. Paul was just work rate, endeavour and honesty. I think he's the same as a coach. What Joe just said. He doesn't have that personality, unfortunately. He doesn't come on and go bang, bang, bang. But he never as a player. He just was very effective. Went about his business. Very honest kid. I've heard people say Paul is great company away from the game. He went with the Great Britain to tour and JP and them loved him. Said he's brilliant company. Absolutely brilliant. Laugh. One of the lads and really knows how to, have a good time. And so there's another side to Paul, I'm sure. He's probably under pressure, but every coach is. Danny Maguire, you know, we love Danny, but all them probably 5 coaches at the moment are under pressure. If you go through...
Who's your 5?
That's how it should be. That's how it should be, if I'm being honest. Well, your biggest one for me is not pressure, but Brad's the biggest one. We've got the Perth speculation. If it's true, Meninga's now gone favourite, and he has to then come back and tell Leeds he wants the job. Have Leeds left the job open? I certainly think that I'd talk to somebody else. So that one at the moment's just fucking jingling in the air like something, you know.
Well, we like throwing rumours out here. The big rumour.
Well, you do, we don't.
The big rumour is Steve McNamara's off to England.
Well, you've heard the rumours, yeah.
I couldn't believe that when I saw it. Steve Mack, yeah, it's all done and dusted. That's what I've heard, and I'm like, Brian Mack, but no.
So there'd be different areas of every coach. It'd be little bits of pressure. Certainly in that bottom 3 or 4, it's pressure, I'm sure.
What a great win though.
Steve Mack was under pressure for the first time in his career this year, didn't he? Them 7 or 8 wins, losses.
Still is on side.
So I think that's
semi-final.
Let's be honest, that's part of the job. Paul Rowley's probably the one who's not under pressure. He's bottom because.
Yeah.
But
Paul stops.
Luke Robinson, you know,
great win against Hull at Magic.
Great win against Hull, but 9 defeats.
And they're going to Hull KR on Saturday night. Oh.
So I'll give some positives for Paul here. Joe's explained it brilliant with the young players that he's blooding. Daryl Powell did that, the famous Leeds side. Tony Smith won 2 grand finals. Brian Mack 3. Brian McLaren 2. Daryl Powell blooded 9 of them generation kids and got sacked. Got to final, got sacked. Gary said he wasn't ready because fans wanted instant success. Daryl never got remembered at Leeds for blooding Maguire, Sinfield, Burrow, Jones, Buchanan, whoever it was. I think Daryl once told me that year they blooded loads. That was part of the development arm of what he did. Paul's got a cycle of players here that some have got old, some have got slower, some have got this, some have got that, some are moving on. So it's so hard for him. I'd probably, if I were Mike Rush, come out with something. I think a bit like we said about RFL, I don't understand why Saints don't come out right in his line of fire and say, this is our fault. We've probably not replaced a few players. Some overseas signings have been as good. Let's be honest at the moment, Sailor, I don't know. If they put 180 to 200 grand into Sailor, will that Mike Rush Wellens or who's that?
Well, it's somebody, and it's not been a good return on investment.
So what I'm saying is, all this is happening. We've got to give them time. Got good people like Lee and your man Eamon.
Eamon, yes.
In around it. Lee's supposed to be the attacking coach, taking defence. Pause this.
Eamon, very, very good defensive coach.
There you go. So I probably need. I'm a passion person. So if Rushy or people, my mates get in this, I'm with my mate. I'm going to say, hey, listen, this is not happening. You've got this. My other worry for Paul would be the players don't seem to be coming out. Historically, you just said Wellesby did, and brilliant. I totally admire that. Probably need some of them bigger players to come out.
Yeah.
Now they daren't because of the Johnny situation. Because there'll be people on Team Johnny. There might be people who are. Johnny's run the team for 10 years. Fact. Probably run the attack for 10 years. Fact. Brazy coming in will have a conflict to that, I'll tell you now.
Yeah.
Because Brazy's wanting to play a different way, and Lee could probably say, I can't do it while Johnny's here. I can't implement this because Johnny wants to play that number thing when he gets overs, and because it suits Johnny's game. Johnny doesn't run at the defenders. He's not like a normal halfback. Do you understand with that? Johnny's a genius at saying, there's 10 people there and I'll find a way to get a number somewhere. Be there. And he runs it all, and then he usually does the final pass because he ain't got a kicking game. He's been a top Super League halfback. He couldn't kick goal. That's the truth. If you look at his tries he's set with his kick in 15 years, you're probably looking at maybe, 10. You look at 40-20s, probably no. You look at 60-yard kicks, probably no. You're looking at, so his kicking ability would be 3 or 4. He's been a genius at the other stuff, the defence, the running, the
vision, and
the training and his culture. If your main man's going through a change, might be a yard short, I don't want to do the new system, that'd be a nightmare. That would be a fucking nightmare. George is too young to say, you've been good, Johnny. Dodgy'd have done it. Dodgy would have gone, Johnny, you've been great, see you later. 100%. Because that's the type of, he'd have been 23 by now. and he's had 5 years with Johnny, and he said, listen, son, you've been great. Leeds had the same problem, Mick. When Danny left, Kevin Robb, the first people they put, do you know the first 2 halves they thought could do it? Was Sutty and Lilly. Well, within 8 weeks, no, we love Sutty, but within 8 weeks, Jordan and Sutty was never going to be replacing the greatest 2 halves in the history of Leeds, or one of them. They had 11 half-backs. They still haven't got it right. They're still doubting Croft now.
Yeah.
So, it's very parallel to Leeds. It's not easy. You know what I mean? It's not easy to replace. How they replaced Lomax took over from it's weird. I think this is, to see if people understand this, I think there's battens, and I think Leeds, the best players pass the baton to the other best player. Do you get me? If you've got it right. I think JP and them leaving this torch, and JP give the torch of the forwards to, say, Bradley Singleton or whatever it was.
Yeah.
It's up to Brad then to take the forward into the next generation. I think the halfbacks, Kevin, Robert Thingy, give it to Sutty Thingy, Robert Louis, Gaelic come to that Challenge Cup final and won. I think Roby got it passed by Kieran.
Yeah.
Scully. And some of the greatest players, Sean Long. Johnny got the back end of that as a young man, 18-year-old, playing full-back, playing with some of the best players to play game. I don't know if they've got it ready for Johnny to pass the baton to anybody. I can't see it. Walmsley looks like he's on his last.
Well, I think they did.
Dodgy and fucked off.
Yeah, I think that's the nightmare.
Yeah.
They did. And that
maybe.
process hasn't worked.
Maybe that's a key thing. If Lewis had been there and saying, I'm here for the next 10 years, so I can
you'd
make
have
this...
Dodson, then you'd have Whitby coming behind him with Johnny filling in. That makes a lot more sense, having Johnny at 34 and then Whitby at 18, 19 in it. There's a void.
Morgan knows he's with Matty Lees. He stayed to Georgie, our boy. Georgie is he ready to set the baton? Probably not yet. It's probably not. He's on 21, 22.
Yeah, George.
Probably not going to say to Walmsley, you've been great, son. And that, unfortunately, I don't think Leeds... I talked about this a lot. Mikelai and Cameron, as players, have had a lot of pressure from going into Leeds at 17, 2019-18, after the last grand final. And they could be 2 of the best players ever to play for Leeds and never win a thing. Do you get me? They've won a Challenge Cup, sorry. That'd be terrible on my CV if I had their ability.
You said this last time, and it's not.
You don't think it is? Well, I've talked to Cameron.
Yes, because he's from the mighty Leeds Rhinos, and the pressure and the expectations massive. But how many players have even won a Challenge Cup? Not many. It's not a big...
That's one of the worst comments. You've gone from best comment to worst.
No, I've not.
You would think top players like Mikelai Ledski are going to play 16 years and win a Challenge Cup and they're happy with that. So it's a home-week coffee.
No, they're not. I'm not saying the thing, but yes, it's still a great achievement. No, I don't like the underwriting of winning a great challenge. All FC have lived off 2 of them for 10, 15 years, haven't they? I think it's fantastic.
I don't think you've been around top players enough then to say that.
Yes, their own expectation, Dad. I've been around.
Well, I read an interview with, I know it's a different
Of course
sport.
there is, but when you look back and think, to say they've won something, especially at their ages at this point, it's fantastic.
26-year-old,
yes.
the Challenge Cup.
Yes, to say they've gone through 2 generations of Saints winning 4 years. What else are they going to... There's only one thing to win other than a Challenge Cup.
Yeah, but that's part of the thing, but surely you'd have to say, if you're a top player...
Of course, your expectation, I'm a paddle player, I want to win the tournaments, but if you look back and say you've won your little things, you've gone... They've come in through a Saints side that has won 4 in a row, then into a Wigan side that might win 3 in a row. They won 3 in a row. Is it 2 now? It's 2. Is it 2 or 3 now? But they might win 3 in a row. Might win 4 in a row. You've got to getting your little victories, a Challenge Cup, and that you take your wins when you get them. Even though personally you'd be saying, yes, I'm coming for them. You can't think otherwise. But it was impossible for Leeds to win a Super League title over the last 6 years with the recruitment, with how it's been held. It's impossible. It's just the fact they won a Challenge Cup for me was a great achievement. So I don't think they could have won that, but they pulled it off. And Gailey, like I said, Gailey and the guy, they rode them to a Challenge Cup. Fantastic.
I think if you're a high achieving player, and like these lads at Saints now going in, if it's going to be a 4 or 5 year before they come back to achieve a grand final again, or
there's only one a year, so what you're describing is impossible.
Challenge Cup, or even
there's only 13 players that are going to be happy with what you're describing, so it's
and in our sport's one of the luckiest ever. What we've always said, it's not football. Where Leicester, for the first time, to be fair to us, the same 3 or 4 teams have won it historically.
No, it's worse than football.
But there's only 10, 11 teams, 12 teams in our league. So actually, to get into a chance of having it, what's Challenge Cup now? We're going to win 4 games to get to the final.
From a Super League point of view, yeah,
so
it's madness.
That's achievable for any player, isn't it?
No, because not many have won it. If every Tom, Dick and Harry had won a Challenge Cup, then you'd say, yeah, but they haven't. It's still a great, don't like the underwriting of achievement.
Wow, I'm opposite. I think that if any players I've dealt with, when they're that way out, there's a massive underwhelming achievement if they don't do it. And let's be honest, so back to this weekend, so Welland's got the perfect game, Mick, to come back on. Catalans will be absolutely fatigued. They've played back-to-back away. I think it's at Saints they saw it.
St Helens, yeah.
That have stayed in this country, that have stayed at that hotel in Leeds where they stay. That's tough. There couldn't be a better game for Saints and Paul to get going again than tonight. I think they'll beat them by probably 20. I think you'll see some right rugby. Quote me, this is early, so I'm quoting it out. I think they'll play for Paul tonight and they'll go on a bit of a run. And I think they'll be all right. And I think we'll all be talking about it at the end of the year and going, wow. And I think if he gets his full side, and there's just that connection of, I'd play Johnny. I'll be honest. I'd have to play Johnny. I think the problem is they're trying to fit Sailor in because he's on 200 grand. That means Wellesby has to play different positions. I think, no. I saw Sailor the other day on wing for Beniston or whatever it was. I'd probably play him there. I'd just say, listen, I know he's expensive winger. And when we bring the kid back, will they sign from Queensland Cowboys, who's been injured?
I know what you mean.
Yeah, they signed Murphy in the NRL.
Yeah, Kyle Felt.
Then he has to go on bench or whatever. That's where you have to swallow. But I won't change Lomax, and my opinion, I won't change Lomax and Wellesby to suit Sailor. I think you've got to say to Johnny. And if this is Johnny's last year, if the rumours are right, and he is that, he's going to leave a legend, this is it. Good on Johnny. He owes nobody out. Go and get yourself 2 or 3 years somewhere else. I think they'll be all right, Mick. I think they're too good. And I think in games they look like they're this, but they are rebuilding. The semi-final would have took loads out of Catalans, tell you now, because I think Catalans circled that as this year, what Joe's saying about what you're going for. I think Catalans would have said, no chance at grand final, lads. We haven't got a strong enough squad to play all year, then go. You know how hard it is to go on 3 or 4 runs at grand final. It's horrific. Then playoffs, you've got to be fresh. Catalans had no chance, in my opinion, of doing that. So they would have earmarked the Challenge Cup. And if it's true Steve Mack is moving, then imagine the motivation, all that, and it's failed. They've got. I think Saints Catalans go on a bad run in a bit because they'll be fatigued, older legs. This will be horrific for them tonight. Good for Saints. Hull KR are probably opposite. I think they're on crest of a wave. They're arguably the best team this year on points. Wigan would argue with that. We still think Wigan on the day will beat anybody. I think none of us are going to change our mind. Matty Pete rang me today, and he's it was in the Barbers. And the video thing comes on, he's just having a thing. There's no pressure on Matty. He's like, I looked and I just thought, when he never made a move to sign a player this year, it still shocked me and it still will shock me. That's either telling you what they've got is enough to win next 2 or 3. Not just this year, he probably thinks they can. KR, let's be honest, lads, KR are the only team capable of doing that. Lee could have run a bad thing here. Lee got beat, I thought, quite comprehensive. Warrington are in. I think it's the final. I think it'll be exciting. I think both teams will throw. I think Willie will do process. Sam will throw everything at it. They've got some. If George is back, they've got some great individual plays. Massive Ashton being out for a year. That is absolutely colossus. There were rumours when it happened. Everyone's unhappy, and then someone's dancing about thinking one of his players might have a chance at World Cup. I find that a bit sick. Sorry, Joe.
I don't know.
Anyway,
I've seen it all on social media.
So it's horrific. So Challenge Cup semi-final. We've got a great final. Both well supported. Hopefully Warrington can get back on board. We're taking 20,000 up. We know Hull KR are going to take So we need at least 60, 55,000 for the Met that a spectacle. Hopefully we get it. Personally, Mick, I haven't been to the last 3 Challenge Cup finals because it's just not my boat anymore at Wembley. I don't like Wembley. I don't know. And I want to get... I've got to go this time. We've got too many players there. We've got to book these tickets. But I think it's the right final, and I think it'll be the most exciting final we've had for a lot of years. I think once they go through process, it'll be then let's play. And I think when they played them last time, they were fantastic. KR had them. But that last 20, they opened up on that edge about 4 times. Jordan were coming across. It was like one ball away from winning. I think that they learned a lot. It's going to be a great final. I think Catalans and Lee are on the back of them defeats. You know, they've announced now Chris Chester leaving. How that dynamic works at Leeds will be very interesting. You've got Degsy, who is the all-powerful king of Lee, but he also, Chesney was a buffer between him and Lammy, you know, so Dex emotions are getting best of him. Do you get me? Derek put out it press or leaded, well, Lammy picks players anyway. You know, it was a funny one, innit? So I think it'll be interesting which teams after that go on. I think Catalans and Lee might hit a pretty sticky patch. You've heard the rumours this week about a few Lee players being linked with a few clubs. Be interesting times. If I were Deggs, I'd probably think, I think the role of director of football, as we know now, is the most important role at the club. Steve Mills at Wake, he finally got the public toffee, Michael. It came out of the bag. Why is Wakefield in 6th position and players we've never heard of playing 60-yard tries? And
Steve Mills.
So I think Derek's got to get somebody in quick.
Yes.
And I don't think Jukesy can do it because Jukesy's infested with Derek. He's very close to Derek. He works at Derek's company. I think that'd be an hard role. Jukesy's been away from rugby for 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, if that doesn't go well, that potentially ruins a lot.
And another one, I don't know if you both agree, the director of football role now being ultra important as it is in football. Joe will tell you this. We've said this enough on the show. Chesley's been brought into CAS. That's been announced. Chesley's selective expertise is overseas players. We're not saying he can't do it English, but he's very, very good at bringing overseas players in that we've never heard of. They become superstars of of our game, don't they? Chesley's got the biggest challenge of his life on his hands now. Spoke to Chesley for an hour yesterday. He says it's enormous. What's going to happen? He's going to have to make some major decisions now. They've got about 16 players they're going to have to make a call on.
Wow.
And they're going to have to bring in some quality. I think they're on about bringing in some quality now. Now, there could be next 10 days a big announcement of a player. So Chesley's in now and among it. I think it's proved, Joe will tell you, when we deal with Steve Mills, it's different with dealing with everybody else. Even the top 4 clubs haven't got a Steve Mills. It's different. You know, if Saints had a Steve Mills, different. I think that bit of recruiting that's gone off is because the CEOs and the other people are still doing it, and the coaches. I don't think they've got a recognised man. Yeah. If I were advising Mike Rush and I look at him as my friend, I'd get a Steve Mills now.
Wow.
And it'd have to be somebody who can do passion for IDing, passion for negotiating, and can see a player, then he can manage place. Dragging Arjo up, some young lad like that who's got a young thing for the game as well. They understand the cap. They understand everything about it. Steve's different. He's not like the old-fashioned that player. It's they know in the modern day. Do you know what I'll tell you? I'll let you into a secret here. We're doing this thing with Neil Chirembi, this private development, and we think a superstar on the way. We'll know whether we're going to. It's all documented, by the way, and we'll all do it when it comes out. We've got every bit of thing. He finishes playing for goal at 5:10, and by 5:25, I get his individual highlights and all his stats from that game from Steve Mills. He can do that on any player in the world. So if you mention Queensland Cup player tomorrow, Steve Mills will go. You can be sat there, Mick.
So Chemby was playing for Gould at Whitehaven on Sunday?
I got it at 5:20.
So I presume he's wearing some metric, some device, or Wakefield sent somebody up there who were doing the stats, because Yeah, that is remarkable. Whitehaven's not an easy place to get to. So
poor old Tag.
There's someone.
Poor old Tag doesn't get that for his own players till the Monday night. We're getting it on one player, and he's done it for me for every game he's played.
Wow, Steve Mills, you are ahead of the curve.
And every club, I've said this, you know I have for years, he will have to go his way because of the expertise of that job. I'm serious. He has just got ahead of the field. And do you know why? I went for a meeting in Wakefield this week, private. Matt Ellis, Darryl, Steve. The first words they say in this meeting and it works every time. Steve Mills looks at Thing with Matt and Darryl, he goes, do you know when the clubs have all this decision making? This is it. This is it. You come here, that's it. Millsy probably, the trust of Matt Ellis and Darryl in Millsy is that immense that Millsy's probably got the power of the say. Do you get me? Because he's got that much backup to what he says to him, they believe him. You know, when you see a blagger and he goes, why do you like him? And he goes, oh, I like him. Steve gives you...
Yeah, the analytical data comes out. Yes, yeah, I get it.
Do you know, we've been dealing for 16 years. I dare tell you that 50% of our players haven't even watched.
Wow. Wow.
I'm telling you, I'm serious. I'm deadly serious. They wouldn't affect. You know what they said to you? Have you any highlights? I go, yeah, Mick's just had them done. No, he said, have you any highlights? I said, then this happens. Then they say, oh yeah, you just sent me his good bits. I goes, no, you've asked for highlights, you clown. Do you get me? Mills's highlights are every single touch of that ball. They can't even be asked to have a setup to get you that on it. You have the same problem.
Yeah.
You talk to a club about a player, Mick, it's horrendous.
Well, yeah, and then the next one is you send the highlights, and I don't, like I said, I doubt they might watch Best Try and go, oh, he's got a bit, and then you'll come back and then you'll like, this. I'm not sure. But what happened is in that time they'll just have asked the two mates who coached him 1 year back in 2017, and he wasn't a massive fan of him back in 2017 when he was 19 and partying a bit, and now he's 24, but he still has the reputation from when he's 19, and that's all you've got to go off to get a player in. That's about as much analytics that they'll go into. Reputation.
Gary Chambers has started doing it at Warrington, and he's on the and I'd say he's been okay, but I think Gary, I love Gary, but Gary, like Steve, just digital wise and investment and technology would be that far in front, wouldn't it? He's like, you know, if you see Steve at a Leeds 18s game, he comes with his stats man. What's he called, Lado?
I can't remember.
We have a laugh with him. They're like a partnership. They're dangerous. Because they look. Stats man, Steve might go, how many yards did he do last week? And he goes, 160, 3 misses. You're like, fucking hell.
To have that
make every player
information,
every academy player.
Wow.
If we ask for an opinion on, if I did this on live show now, we'll do it. Let's have a bit of crack next time, and I'll say, Steve, we'll pick a name.
Well, ask Steve if he wants to come on and give us that insight into the role of an analyst and how it has evolved, and how important the role of an analyst is.
Well, that'd be fantastic.
To success on and off the field.
Yeah, good.
Wow. Just a final one on the rumour that's doing the rounds. Steve McNamara leaving Catalan's going to Leeds. Do you think that's a hit or a miss? I'm not saying if there's any truth in it.
I'll say depending on Brad Arthur, I'll say.
Well, let's assume Brad Arthur's already said he's off to.
Oh, you're saying so?
Yeah.
Well, no, I need to say that. Okay, to say that is presumed because that's not done or dusted or anything. There's nothing announced, nothing.
I must confess, that was one that really threw me. That's done the rounds this week, and
I'd say they'd have to, wouldn't they? They'd have to make that call on the coach now. I don't think they've done the last. They did it with Rowan. They've done it with Brad. They've done these recruitment cycle where the coach has been fired and they've had to blag it for 4 months till the new coach has come in and then try for it. I think, to be fair to Bleasy, if he knows it's coming, if Brad has told him, let's say the Perth one is done, if it's not done, fair enough, but if it is done, he better have that job lined up, and he better, probably whoever's got the job might have to keep a second eye on it working out, because it is Leeds Rhinos, it's a top 4 club every year, and you probably have to be on it, because part of the reason it has struggled is that they've had these 4 or 5 month blips every time a new coach has come in. That's just stagnated the club another year.
But when you look at McNamara, and you've not answered, Joe, whether or not you think it's going to happen or not. You've gone round the houses there. But what I'm saying is, I think this season, and Steve's had a great time at Catalan Dragons, and if his time, I'm not saying it is, I'm just looking at the Rugby League rumours, but
I know
I certainly could see Steve agreeing with Bernard Grolsch, you know. This will be my last year.
I had a little rumour. My best mate, sorry, this is not a rumour actually, this is just my best mate is family friends with Steve McMahon's daughter's boyfriend, but they all live in about 20 minutes away. So I'd say if there was a place, if he would come back to England,
Leeds,
you'd probably say it'd be near his family.
So Joe's saying it's a lukewarm hit, Craig. If you know more than
yes,
you do.
I know 6 weeks.
All right.
I didn't know who it was, but I would know what you've just said. I would have said to Joe and Jimmy and people, this is what I've got.
This is the direction of travel.
Yeah, this is what I thought. So do I think, away from knowing something, I think it wouldn't surprise me if Brad stops for the next 2 or 3 years, because I think when Brad's got the job,
Miles in for it now.
Sam Burgess had come in and they've gone. And they're saying, I didn't know this, but they're saying Perth's 5 hours from everywhere.
It is.
So whoever goes to Perth has to travel a lot.
To Sydney, to Brisbane.
It's probably a single player. If you're married with a wife and widow there, you're probably going to be in big trouble. They're going to play some games at Queensland or whatever and different places, because they can't keep on, doing this back and forth.
That's at the youth level. They're going to have to do
what I've
Queensland
done some real research on this with. I think Brad was the 1 to 5 on for the job. And I think he's been in talks for a long time, in my opinion. But then Sam's gone. Whew. Now that's a charismatic person. So if you're going to get a new franchise, Sam Burgess has to be on your list.
Yeah.
It's got to be. Somebody said yesterday on the podcast in Australia, but James Green is big friends with Sam. I love the loyalty of them two. I love it. James went, this report was saying, but Sam could be a lot of stigma, a lot of root things, this. And he went, what? Like what? Tell me one that's been proven what he's done. Said he's been told and libelled, but he's never done. So James were fired up, and he's saying, who wouldn't want Sam Burgess going to a new franchise? Hey, let me tell you, this is fact. The players love Sam. I'm telling you, and there's not a player at Warrington who will not walk on water for Sam Burgess, guaranteed. The thing in Vegas, what he's now hates talking about, and rightly so, because they keep on popping it up, and Sam's now sat there with dad and wife, baby and wife, and he's like, come on. He's trying to say to everyone, come on, yeah, I had a good time, but this is some young lad learning his lesson. Adrian Morley did a podcast yesterday with Andrew Johns and things, said the greatest player I've ever played with is Sam Burgess. Fact. My hero's Ellery, but greatest player was Sam, hands down, which is a big thing because he played with Brad Fiddler for 3 years. I was thinking, wow, easy room. And then you've all had it. Because
Big Mal,
the icon of Australia rugby,
he says he wants it.
The Kangaroos coach, who everyone has, no one's ever had a bad word for Mal. They ain't. He's like we ain't got anybody like that. We ain't got a Gus Gold. We ain't got a Mal Meninga. We haven't got a colossus in the game. Who I would say JP would have been the one if he'd have stuck around. Who everyone would have gone.
Yeah.
Be careful if JP says it. Like he would have been that colossus because of what he did on that pitch.
Yes.
Unfortunately, JP does his own. Doesn't do that. So we haven't got that. I reckon Brad's on dodgy ground. I think Meninga will get the momentum and they'll go with him because he's loved by all origin, he's loved by Australia. I watched thousands of coverage in Australia. I reckon Brad had gone, I've got this. There's only one person, and Mal might have been that one. Oh, do you know what I mean? He's like, you don't want Mal saying he wants the job, do you? Publicly. Backed, by the way, he's quite big with press and all, so he's backed by all press. It's So it wouldn't surprise me. Steve Mackay, I think, could do a fantastic job at Leeds.
Wow.
Absolutely. Because he understands youth. He does. I always remember Bradford. Bradford.
Steve McNamara was the one who brought them all through. Your Whiteheads, your Batemans, your Mellors. He brought them all through.
There's probably a reason why. He might be part of the reason why I think Catalans out of all the Super League side have, is it first or second with Wigan, have the most academy
Correct,
players
yeah.
playing
Steve
in Super League.
McNamara has always been a driving force in youth development. And if you are a Leeds fan watching this and you're like me a little bit who thought, wow, Steve McNamara's name's just come out of nowhere for the Leeds job, well, look, listen to Craig, you know, look at the facts, what I've just said. I could see the fit. I could see the fit, especially when we've done a separate show on the Origin Academy and all those young players. Gary Everington was at an academy game not so long ago, and he said, get ready. He said, this is the best crop he's ever seen.
Listen, and that's massive to the, you know, that's not easy what John and Simon Bell and them doing, chef coaching them, you know, the work that's gone into that is phenomenal. Steve Mack's a great choice. Sam Tompkins, if he does, will become the next coach of Catalans. I dare anybody wants to try and tell me otherwise, come for it. Because Joel's director of football, Sam's the most powerful man. He's probably more powerful than Steve at Catalans. I'm not being demeaning to Steve. I think Sam's got that personality. It's that again, JP, Kevin. It's like some people are bigger than a debate. Do you get me? We got Kev on here and you wanted to smash him and debate him. I don't think Kev put in his position to do it. You get me? It's like some people are on that level. I think Sam is. I think he's that media level. He gets paid off Sky, BBC. There's not many can do all three. You've got some jingles if you can do all three. And I think he'll be next coach. And it's whether Sam will be looking at that and going, do I fancy it? He's still playing it. He'll play end of the year. I'm 37, whatever he is. I love France. I'm not going to get the Wigan job. That's my dream. You know, that might be the one. Matty's got that wrapped up 10-year deal.
Yeah.
So Andy Farrell did jump to Rugby Union, the legend, who you'd say beyond Sam's level, you know, probably, you know, I think it's certain. He's next Catalan's coach, I think Steve Mack.
Wow.
If Brad goes, I think it'd be a fantastic choice to be the thing. And he's done England, so he understands top players and he understands youth. That's what you need at Leeds. You need two things. You need to understand the egos of the best players, and by God, there's some egos there. And then you've got to be able to develop young people. He does both.
Wow, well, we'll leave the show here. So, big, bold, potential prediction in Steve McNamara going to Leeds, Sam Tompkins taking over at Catalans, and who knows what happens between Mal Meninga, Brad Arthur and Sam Burgess for the Perth Bears job.
The heavyweight title, it's the heavyweight championship.
We're all three in a ring. But no, thank you for joining us. Hopefully you're glad we're back, and yes, we'll see you next week on another edition of the rip-roaring full 80 minutes on Show Me the Money Rugby League TV.